Okay, so now I might be out of the screen because I've zoomed in on the pumping station. So now when I'm handling a specimen, I need to wear gloves because my fingers are full of oils and sweat and contaminants that you don't want anywhere near your specimen. So I'm going to grab some large gloves because I do get sweaty hands, and using smaller gloves, the rubber sticks, so it's got to dry off a little bit. And put the gloves on. So it's quite an involved process, but I'm showing it to you in a lot of in every detail as well, and explaining every step of the way. But it's not bad filming with the tripod, actually, I have to say. I filmed the SEM lab when Liang was doing it. That was me filming and he was walking through it. So it's quite impressive how steady you can, how this, the jitter control software in an iPhone removes all the makes everything smooth in a way when you pan and when you're jittering holding the phone. Anyway, so I've just allowed this to come up to atmosphere. So I'm going to vent it now with some dry nitrogen. So just take the backing line off, open up the valve that admits the dry nitrogen, and I'll just let that sit there while I put this back on. Close this valve. Doesn't need to be too tight. And now that's now vented at atmosphere. So I'll just let that sit there because I have to prepare the space where it's going to sit. And these things are very expensive. These are worth about $50,000 to $100,000 each. It's only a foot long rod of metal, but it's been so precisely machined to be able to tilt within and keep the axis steady at nanometer level. And that costs a lot of money to do. Very precise mechanical machining and lots of electronic components inside it. And so, first thing we have to do, open up the hatch and then prepare the base with clean paper, because we have to have clean surfaces all the time. So I've got a stack of paper for lining the bench top with. There. And then we prepare our stand. Okay, so I'm just grabbing out of your field of view double tilt holder stand, and just going to move that aside. Just going to check that you guys can see that. Yes, you can. And then I'll grab the specimen holder from the pumping station. And there it is, and I'll place it on the stand with support, because the mechanism within the head that holds the specimen is very delicate, so that needs to be supported. Okay, so the next bit, I have to start the pumping station again, so I'm going to put a blanking plug into the hole that just came from. That's what I'm doing now. I'm out of view, and opening up the valves again and starting the pump so that the other holders can continue to pump. There's a 3mm hole right there, and that's where the specimen sits. So I'm just going to grab the specimen out of the fridge because these specimens age over time, and so we need to keep them cold, and I'll be back. The specimen, it's in a membrane box which I've just placed in front of the holder. And that's it there. It's actually a 3mm disc. It's absolutely tiny, and I'm going to show that to you. I'm going to show you as much as I possibly can because This is where you see what the nature of the specimen is like. Okay, I've just arranged the tripods so that I don't bang into it while I'm doing the delicate stuff. So I'm just moving into view now to mount this specimen. So we turn on the lights of the microscope and we turn on the vacuum tweezers, and then what we need to do is we need to get our tweezers ready. So I've got tweezers right there. These sit under foil, and then what's holding the specimen back, I'm going to use it to need a binocular microscope, and I'm just going to shift the specimen over so that it's right under the microscope. So I'm looking through the microscope and I can see a mechanism of screws which need a plastic micro screwdriver to loosen those screws, to remove the mounting bracket into which the TM specimen will sit. So there we go. If I can take a photograph of this or video it. Oh gosh. Yes. Previous user has absolutely ruined the micro screwdriver by using too much force. Alright, so I'm just loosening that up. The reason why we've got plastic screwdrivers is because many of these parts are made of beryllium, and if you use normal screwdrivers and you crack the beryllium that's liberated in dust form can be fatal. So, and also you don't want your moving parts to wear out. So I'm using these tweezers. I'll just check the alignment of the camera. So now you should be able to see a bit more closely what I'm doing. So I've got the vacuum tweezers here, and I'm just going to peel these brackets away with the vacuum tweezers while looking through the binocular microscope. Remove the beryllium washer. Now it's time to look at the sample. Okay, so inside this membrane box, I'm just going to pull it straight out. Got a bit of filter paper covering the top of the specimen. There's a specimen. Looks quite nice. Use the vacuum tweezers again. Hard to pick up sometimes. You don't want to ruin the electron transparent hole. So I just picked it up with the vacuum tweezers, moving it in tiny little 3mm disc, moving it in over the specimen cup and dropping it in by releasing the vacuum. Okay, that looks like it's well seated. So I'm just going to put the beryllium bracket back. Oh, no. Yeah, it's not quite seated as well as I'd like. Okay, that's good. Now the copper lugs back on top, mounting brackets. Washers in place, mounting brackets almost in place. Yeah, so mounting the specimen takes a long time. And then the vacuum is so critical that we're going to put the specimen into the microscope and then give it a 25-minute pumping break. The gloves don't help. The gloves make things more clumsy as well. So I'm just going to pop that on there. Now I can tighten up with the screwdriver. trim these. Screwdriver off. Now that's nicely loaded. So what I'm doing is I'm just putting the tool back into the foil from which it came. We've got the foil protectors on all the tools so that dust doesn't get on them. I'm just giving it a final tighten with the bigger screwdriver. Yep, gentle tighten. Only finger tight. You don't want to ever work mechanical gearings beyond finger tight. So now it's a matter of just closing the membrane box again with the tweezers. And the specimen is mounted. Now we have to go and clean the specimen. So there it is there. You can just, if I hold my hand steady enough, see the hole in the specimen. That's the mechanism that allows the specimen to be tilted. You can see those red pins. They're little ruby gears. Actually, they're actually ruby pinions around which the head can tilt, so that you've got tilt in the Y direction, and of course the whole holder pivots about itself, so that's the X direction of tilt. So there it is there, and I'll just zoom out again. Whoops. That's the entire holder. It's under lights, very bright. If I click on there, should be better. And just as a scale marker, I'm not going to touch it, there's my little finger. So that little disc in there is the specimen, and if I zoom right up on it, there it is. I've got to keep my hand steady. So that there, under that bracket, which is bolted down by the copper lugs, that is that there's our 3mm disc, which is the sample from the unidentified aluminium alloy in your consulting brief, which forms the essence of this lab exercise. Now I'm going to take this entire device to the plasma cleaner. Okay, here we are at the plasma cleaner. This is where we put our specimen holder, which has travelled in this nice box, into this port here with the blanking plug, and then we will use an argon oxygen recipe, ARO2, but at slightly less time because we don't want to wear out the Teflon bearings in the specimen holder. So for 1 minute, that's it there. We have to start the gas inlet there. Right, so just open that up. Argon oxygen. We vent the plasma cleaner. Bit of glare. That's now vented. We can remove blanking plug. Very nice and carefully put it in the blanking plug holder. A bit hard to do this with one hand, so but I'll try. So now I'm opening the box. Taking our specimen holder. I should really do this with two hands, and I'm going to do this very gently because It is very delicate. So I'm just pushing it in there. The drive pin marries well with the slot. Now we bring the chamber down to vacuum. Engage the turbo pump. And we've got the gas on, so now we're going to start the recipe. So now it goes in operational mode. It starts to emit gas in a second. So gas flow should begin. Yes, there it is. Stabilizing the gas flow. And now it's starting the plasma. Okay, so the plasma's starting. And when it's stable, sometimes it doesn't actually spark properly, so it has to try a second time. And now it's cleaning. And you'll see in this port a nice purple glow. Let's see if I can get in closer or zoom in. Specimens in that bit, in that chamber being plasma cleaned. Alright, that goes on for about a minute. I'll zoom out again. And then we just remove it. So just thought I'd show you that. I'll pause it there. So I've just returned from the plasma cleaner and it's still on its stand. And now, before we can put it into the microscope, we have to clean the O-rings for dust and fibres. And we do that with a little toothpick. It's actually a satay skewer. Wood is very good at doing this without scratching rubber, and also fibres. The electrostatic attraction between fibres and wood is pretty high. So we use lens cleaning paper to get that ready in order to be able to clean the tip of the skewer, while we look through the microscope and look for little hairs. So while I'm doing that, I'm going to zoom in for you. I'm just going to set up the binoculars so that they're in focus, which they are now. So I have two O-rings to clean. The first one is the entry airlock O-ring, and then one is right at the entrance of the column, that O-ring. And I can already see quite a bit of dust on there, so this cleaning process takes at least a few minutes. I'll just zoom in on the procedure. And you'll see what I'm doing. Okay, so the first O-ring. You can see this is a very involved process. We haven't even put the specimen in the microscope yet, and we've been going for about an hour already. So, and there's stubborn dirt on this O-ring that just does not want to lift off. Eventually it will. There we go, first bit of dust. And there's a lot of dirt on it. Okay, so this is the really tough part of the job, where you're picking individual bits of dust off with a skewer. But it's important that you see this, because it means, it gives you a new appreciation that you don't just put a specimen in TM, flick a few switches and grab an impressive image. It doesn't work like that. It requires a lot of care and preparation, because if things aren't right at the specimen end of things, that'll make it impossible when you try to do microscopy. So they say that 90% is in the quality of the specimen. That's to some degree true, but every part of microscopy is a rate limiting step. If you don't do each step properly, you won't get good results. So you have to do everything right. Set up specimen prep. Specimen prep's the first point though. If you don't have a good specimen, you're not going to get good results. But then how you put that specimen in the microscope can seriously affect your day. And if other users have been careless with how they put their specimens in the microscope, that can seriously screw up your day. And that's why the training required to use a TM is very demanding. It takes of order 3 or 4 years to become a truly expert user on a TM, and that's 3 or 4 years of continuous use. So it's like flying a plane, you know. Many people have likened it to flying a plane because you need a certain number of flight hours to maintain a pilot's license. Okay, that first O-ring is starting to look clean. You can find no more evidence of debris that's going to cause a leak. Because it's the O-ring, that little O-ring there is the seal between the outside world and ultra-high vacuum. Or space that we generate in a laboratory inside the electron microscope. Okay, there's quite a bit of heavy particulate matter on this O-ring. Ooh, that's nasty. There's a metal flake on that O-ring. Somebody's been rather careless. Okay, so I'm doing the front O-ring now. Okay, it's looking better. And now we're ready to go. Now I've got to move quickly because the O-rings are clean. Specimen's ready to go. It's been plasma cleaned. Now I'm going to just switch straight to the microscope. Take the specimen holder off the stand. Open the hutch. I closed it again because I didn't want dust to get in there. And then axially insert it. First, I have to check the checklist if there's anything I've forgotten. Aha! I have forgotten something. To switch the vacuum monitors back to lower level just in case there's a leak. That is actually looking quite good. The vacuum looks quite stable. It's all about the vacuum. You can't do microscopy without a good vacuum. So I'm inserting this nice and axially. Great care not to knock anything. These things are exceptionally delicate, as is the specimen. Then I'm going to set the toggle to pump. So now, what that just did is it closed the valve and it's pumping the airlock. So it's now sitting in an airlock before it transits into the specimen, into the column. Now the column, the column's not this wide, right? This is lens coils and lead shielding to stop radiation leaking out from X-rays and things like that. The column itself is actually a little tube which is about half a centimeter in diameter that runs up and down. So the electrons are confined to a tube that's half a centimeter in diameter. And all of this is the lead shielding and the copper coils in the lenses that do all the focusing and deflecting of the electrons. So now we just have to wait for this to pump. It gets to a certain point, and it'll let me know that it's reached a certain level of vacuum, and a little green light comes on when it does that. And then we have to wait another 5 minutes to give the airlock time to really equilibrate properly. Then we can insert the specimen, but in the process there's always a little bit of leakage into the column, which means that we then have to go and take a 25 to 30 minute break while the microscope pumps. I'm just noting the time, the green light's just come on. It's 9:25, and so at 9:30 we'll put the specimen into the column. Okay, and now we're back after 5 minutes. I actually gave it an extra minute for, not for luck, but you know, the longer you leave things to pump, the more careful you are, the better it is for the instrument and the better your session will go. So now I'm going to pop it in. Pop it in is a bit casual. A nice little twist, and then an ease into the column. That's a double locking stage. Okay, that's in. I have to plug in the cable, which gives me control over the tilts. That's a motorized tilt cable. Close the cover, and I set the I'll set the holder to double tilt. The last user did not neutralize the stage. Naughty. And now we're going to leave it for about, it's 9:32, we can come back at 10 and start the session, have a look at our specimen, because now we need to let it pump, let the whole column pump. We'll just go and check. The vacuum. So I'm turning it to the higher sensitivity. If I inserted it nicely, that's excellent. Okay, down at about 0.5-ish. Times 0.5, so it's 5 by 10 to the minus 6 pascals. 10 to the 5 pascals in an atmosphere, so it's 5 by 10 to the minus 11 pascals. Excellent. Okay, I'll be back in about half an hour.